everybody, this is Don with the Vlog of Many Things with Steve and Glenn tonight. And with us is a really special guest, Peter Adkison. Peter, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you
for
for
having me on your show. I'm
well,
excited to be here.
well, thank you for coming on. Lots of stuff to talk about tonight. Um, so how you doing? I mean, anything? I mean, we're going to be
I,
talking about a new project that you're getting into.
yeah, I'm doing great. I am semi-retired. I do have a new project, but it's kind of on a slow process. I'm not working really hard these days. I kind of stepped back from having much to do with Gen Con. I haven't been going to
Oh,
conventions. I've mainly been spending a lot of time playing war games.
yes, I seen that. Yeah, we're going to be getting into
I
that.
mean, we as gamers, we think like, hey, someday when I'm retired, I'm just gonna play games all the time.
Yeah.
And then I see too many people not do that, and I'm like, okay, I got to set a good example. I'm gonna play a lot of like any games you want to play, of course. It doesn't have to be war games, but for me, that's what I'm playing.
Yeah. Well, I guess what we'll do is we'll kind of just dig right into it. There's a couple questions that I really am interested in, and actually a couple that people have emailed us to say, "Hey, can you ask these when Peter's on?" So we'll kind of dig in, but
Sure.
I want to kind of start off, if you don't mind, in your early days. You're let's face it, you're pretty well known, fairly well known. So before Wizards of the Coast, what did you do before Wizards?
Well, I worked at the Boeing Company from fresh out of college. I graduated from college in 1985 and started Wizards in 1990. So there was a little gap. It took me a while to find a real job, but then I worked at Boeing. I was a systems engineer, which was mainly I wrote software and ran the software, which was the engineering part, I guess, which analyzed ground operations systems for launch vehicles, all
Oh, nice.
hypothetical launch vehicles. We were doing studies for the Air Force and NASA
Mhm.
back in the days of the Reagan era, where there was big dreams of Star Wars and
Oh yeah.
lots
Yeah.
of lots of payloads needed to go into space.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were deep into trying to win a bid to participate in that, but
Oh, yeah.
never happened. And before I worked there for 6 years, and but about 3 years into that process, I decided, I like working at Boeing. I really did. I loved it.
Mhm.
But just a tiny cog in a huge machine. About the ratio of size of industry versus role is like
Yeah.
microscopic. And so I decided, I think I really like to start a game company. So I did.
Well, see, that's the weird jump that I don't get. Okay, you're an engineer. What kind? And that was actually one of my questions next was, before founding Wizards, here you are an engineer for Boeing. What kind of made you go, I'm going to start a game? I mean, I can understand engineering firm, things like that, but what made you kind of go, I'm going to start a game company?
Well, I love games. First of all, I mean,
Oh,
let's be real. I grew up playing games in my family, and then I found our kind of games when I was,
mhm,
actually pretty early, like tween years, 11, 12, along with my dad, and he was a military guy, so we ended up playing a lot of war games with
mhm.
military guys, and so and then in 1978, I went on a 40-year side quest into Dungeons and Dragons and,
Yep.
and then Magic the Gathering and board games and stuff like that. And then recently got back. So I have just been a diehard gamer forever. So when I decided that I really wanted to like be my own boss was the main thing.
Mhm,
It wasn't actually so much I wanted to make a game company as I wanted to be my own boss and
mhm.
have my try my hand at running a business, And so I was deciding, I think, well, maybe games, And so we tried it, and then it worked out.
Now, I've read, and I don't know if this is true, but the name Wizards of the Coast was based off of a game and a world that you did that was basically based on a guild of wizards that you had in the game.
Yeah, that's giving me a little too much credit. It was actually a game I was playing in. It was
Okay.
another world. A guy named Butch Van Dyke. He ran a campaign called Terra Garden, and um, there was this Wizards Guild in his campaign called the Wizards of the Coast, and they were badass. It's like, so if there's something going down, all of a sudden one of the Wizards of the Coast came in, everybody's like, oh, okay. So we just had kind of this reverence for the name, and we always thought it was a
Mhm.
cool name, right? So I started a game company, and it was a friend of mine. It's like when one of my friends said, "Hey, we should start a game company," the other friend immediately in the same conversation, just a second later, said, "And we should name it Wizards of the Coast." And
Oh,
that is the extent of the analysis, market research, discussion there was behind the name.
bingo. Now, when you were at Wizards and you were in the head of it, what would you say was probably your best product, the thing that you were happiest and the most proudest of kind of rubber stamping okay or bringing into it?
Well, now you're putting me on the spot because it's either going to be Magic the Gathering or Dungeons and Dragons
I
Third
figured it'd be one of
Edition.
the two.
I mean, there's also Pokemon to consider. Although we
Yeah.
weren't the original publishers, we brought it. We were the
Mhm.
a distributor. We brought it in from Japan. But I think that I'm gonna kind of sneak my way through answering
Sure.
that by naming both of them, but for
Mhm.
different reasons. Obviously, Magic the Gathering, very special. I still play it. I love the game, and what's so special about it is so unique. It was such a huge jump from anything that happened before in the market. So,
Mhm.
and maybe a lot of people now maybe don't even realize that games like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Duel Masters, all the different Lorcana, all the different trading card games that have come out for the last what is it, 20, 30 years, 30
Mhm.
some years, are all inspired by Magic the Gathering. It was the
Yeah.
first of these games, and so I was not only did I love the game, I was and am so proud to have had the opportunity to publish it. I mean,
Mhm.
so that is cool. But third edition D&D, we had just acquired. We acquired TSR, which was the former publishers of Dungeons and
Yeah.
Dragons in 1997, and for me, I had already played Dungeons. So me, to me, I was a big fan. Dungeons and Dragons was like, this is a game I really, really love. We had
Mhm.
an opportunity to buy it. How geeky is that?
Yeah.
And so we did. And then I immediately, I was very opinionated. I'm a gamer, like a lot of us are opinionated. I was very opinionated about D&D and what should be different and what needed to be fixed. And so third edition D&D was my chance to, put my stamp on it. Um, uh, and, and it worked out really well. It was a huge financial success for the company, and a lot of people loved it, and a lot of people hated it, just like every other edition of D and
Oh
D.
yeah.
Everybody loves it, everybody hates it.
Now, real
There's a
quick,
big group.
what is your flavor as far as D&D? What edition do you like to play?
Oh! It's fun. Well, I think the best edition of Dungeons and Dragons ever made was clearly Everdart.
You there?
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I'm a big fan. Well, but all the editions are good. I did a series on GenCon TV 2 years ago where
Mhm.
we sat down and it was um for the 50th no, it was 50th anniversary. Yeah, I think it's 50th anniversary of D&D. Yeah, that's right, D&D 50. And we ran a series on Gen Con TV where each week we played a different edition of Dungeons and Dragons.
Gotcha.
And in every case except for AD&D, I had an original D&D. I had the original designer of that edition on it. So we had Seb Cook from second edition, we had Jonathan Tweet from third edition, Ron Heinzu for fourth edition,
Mhm.
and Mike Merles for fifth edition. And then we had that DM run that edition of
Oh,
D&D
nice.
on live stream. It was fantastic. For AD&D, of course, Gary Gygax wasn't available, but we got his
Yep.
son. Luke came on and ran
Yep.
for original D&D, we had John Peterson run it. So
Nice.
yeah.
Now, when it comes to Magic the Gathering, Richard Garfield, I've read probably a half dozen stories about how Magic the Gathering came to be, what the story was. I've heard that someone threw it in a trash can and said this is a nothing and all this other nonsense. So
What?
when Richard Garfield, yeah, exactly, when Richard Garfield presented me, how did you get presented with Magic, and how was the process of approving it with you and such? Was it something you played or test played with them, or?
Yeah, well, he Wizards of the Coast, before I met Richard Garfield, we were in the business of publishing role-playing game products, system independent products, like D20 products, but before D20, stuff that you could play with other systems. And but I was starting to get a little. I wasn't sure how big the market for that sort of thing was. So there's a part of me that was always looking to do something else. And Richard was a game designer, but an amateur one. He'd never been published, and he was still in school, actually, working on his master's degree in mathematics. And so through a mutual friend, he submitted Robo Rally as a game for us to publish.
Yep.
And
Glenn loves that game.
I do too.
Thank you for publishing that.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Well, it's funny. My yeah, sorry.
No, I was going to say my grandson thanks you for publishing Magic the Gathering and Pokemon.
Well, there you go. So I was it looked too complicated. Going into board games seemed, in retrospect, it's kind of funny because producing Magic was very, very complicated. But in my mind, since we were making role-playing products, printing a book versus printing cards seemed like a small step as compared to doing a board game with a box and lots of components and a book. So we I asked him if he'd be when I turned down Robo Rally, but in the process I met him and Mike Davis and down in Portland, and he said, well, what would you like? What sort of game would you like? I'll make anything, like, wow, okay. And so I suggested a card game. Now, I just want to immediately jump in and say I did not have, the eureka idea of a trading card game, a game with, like I was thinking of a variant on poker or something like that, And so, and I also had this idea that I thought we could get a lot of color art for a reasonable price, because in those days, I was seeing at a lot of conventions. I would go to like sci-fi fantasy conventions, like these literary conventions that overlap into gaming a lot. And these shows would typically have an art show, and there would be lots of cool art in there. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of really amazing art that's being made, but we're just not seeing it because there were not many ways you could get color art, especially published, because most RPG books in those days were black and white, except for the cover, maybe, right? So, I sort of had that idea, and I said, maybe if we did a card game with a fantasy or horror or science fiction feel, I think I could get art for it at affordable price for somebody like me who doesn't have much money at the time, right? So, so that's all I told him, and like 4 days later, he calls me on the phone. He says, hey, I have an idea. I'd like to tell you in person. How about if I drive up to Seattle next weekend? And so he came up to Seattle the next weekend, and he told me about the idea of a collectible card game. And he had not designed it yet, but he had the core elements of what it was there, that there would be a card game with hundreds and maybe someday thousands or tens of thousands of cards. And everybody would have their own cards, and the cards would have the rules right on the card for how that card works. And you would decide which cards are in your deck, and you could collect cards and trade cards. And when you sat down to play, it's one-on-one. Both players are contributing half the story because you're bringing your deck of cards that you built, and the other person bringing their deck of cards that they built. I mean, you know what this is, but I'm just explaining all of this is in like the initial pitch of him. He had all of this. He didn't have the game mechanics yet, like that there would be 5 colors and that you'd have a deck of so many sizes, and you draw 7 cards to begin with, and untap and draw and cast all that sort of stuff. All that came later, but the idea of it, and there's no way I threw that away. I was immediately just blown away by the idea. I was like, oh, Richard, you got to make this game. I will drop everything, whatever it takes. I will make this happen. And this is such an innovative idea. I'm sure that I could raise some money to go out and get it made. And and raising money is never easy, but we did. We got the money, and it took 2 years from that day. That was in August 1991. 2 years later, August 1993, it was released and hit the market, and immediately did quite well.
Yeah. It did quite well. You might say that. Question from the audience. Chris
Yeah.
Lundgren has a question that says, what was it like to carry the torch of D&D after TSR?
Oh my God. So amazing. Because I was a D&D fan. I started playing in 1978. I have my own D&D campaign called Chaldea, which is right here, Chaldea. I'd done huge amounts of house rules. I mean, like all of us do, and ran, I ran characters up to the levels of gods. We were playing gods in our worlds, from first of all the way to being a demigod, so we were enthusiastic fans.
Yeah,
of Dungeons and
a little bit.
Dragons.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so to then have the chance to be the publisher of it, it was a great honor. It was a great honor. What it was like, it was a great honor. And I also feel really good about the fact that I got to mend some fences, at the time that during after Gary left, Gary Gygax, he was basically ousted from the company. His co-creator Dave Arneson had been, and when we were several of the top authors that have worked for TSR, who New York Times best-selling authors, had all been let go, and it's like, what the? So one of the best things was the opportunity to go back and kind of mend some of those fences and heal some wounds, and and make things right with the community in a lot of ways. So
Yeah, that was really that's part of the outstanding part of your legacy, I think, with Wizards of the Coast.
thank you.
Now I have a question about the OGL and Ryan Dancy.
Yeah, sure.
Now, the OGL is obviously, I think, a risk for you at the time. An open game license. Do you have any regrets over releasing the OGL?
Oh, absolutely not. I never saw it as a risk at all.
Good deal.
One of the things I did in the mid '90s was I went back to school. While I was CEO of Wizards of the Coast, I went and enrolled in the University of Washington's MBA program. And so I got my MBA kind of during all that, because I was tired of, there were people around me that were working for me that knew words I didn't, like balance sheet, and depreciation and all that stuff like that. And one of the things I learned in a concept, though, wasn't it turned out wasn't the accounting that was the most valuable stuff I learned. It was just fundamentals of businesses and business strategies. And being a gamer, I love strategy. And there's this term called network externalities, which is, and if you ever, if you remember the old wars between, sort of like operating system wars, or which is better, Microsoft, Windows or Apple or whatever like that. One of the key things to winning these wars is to have lots of people using your product. And the more people using your product, then the more, let's say in the software world, more people use your operating system, the more software gets written for the operating system, then the more people want to use it. And then it's a virtuous cycle, right? So I thought that would apply. I believed, and it turned out to be true, that would apply to Dungeons and Dragons. If we got more people playing Dungeons and Dragons, and by the way, it wasn't my idea. It was Ryan Dancy's idea. He would turn around and credit his team, people that were working with him, like Lisa Stevens, Cindy Rice, Keith Strong, David Wise. That his team came up with this idea, but I immediately loved it. Thought, yeah, if we can get as many people as possible playing D&D, then it makes D&D a more valuable franchise overall. And also, back in those days, the market for D&D is so much smaller than it is now. Yeah. And most D&D products were not money makers. So you had a lot of stuff like the typical, here's another adventure set in Greyhawk, or, here's a whatever, right? So all these supplements that are necessary for the ecosystem to thrive and keep going, we said, hey, basically, we can, by letting people write materials for our game, then we can it's like farm out the parts of this business that don't make money, and they can make money for a smaller company, because different companies operate efficiently at different levels. So Wizards of the Coast was at a level where we could only operate efficiently for a business that was making tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. And
Mhm.
so if you take the process of making supplements as something that makes hundreds of thousands of dollars, we couldn't do that profitably. And so
Mhm.
so it was a great move for us, and it worked in building the franchise. Um, I have absolutely no regrets whatsoever. I think it's great.
Mhm. Now, question for you, and kind of the end of your Wizards of the Coast days, what made you decide to move on and sell it?
I guess I mean, I loved Wizards of the Coast. I love it still. I don't,
Mhm.
I mean, I put some caveats on that, but we won't go into that. It was, I was really proud of what we did there, but I also kind of have this thing of like Wizards of the Coast. It kind of got like the stuff I really wanted to do in terms of publishing. What I mentioned earlier about companies only operate efficiently at a certain
Yeah.
level of business, right? And so Wizards, when I left Wizards, we had Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, and Pokemon. Those were the three products that we had that were making tons of money. And then
Mhm.
a whole bunch of games below that. Well, the games below that were in effect inefficient businesses for us to be in. I mean, it became clear that probably the model, and maybe I was wrong, but I couldn't think of a way out of this in the time. I couldn't think of a way like how do we do something other than making these three games. And
Mhm.
we tried making lots of games, but none of them. A lot of them sold well by anybody else's standards, but for
Mhm.
us, they were too small to be profitable at, and were a distraction. And so
Yeah.
it's like, okay, then I'm kind of bored now that it's like after after I came out with third edition Dungeons and Dragons and Magic was doing well, and like I'm in meetings about what the packaging should be like for Walmart, and I'm like, Christ, it just I and like I was like, I don't want it. This is I also have a thing where like quit when you're on top, it's like you hate it when you see somebody 10 years 20 years past their prime get back in the boxing ring, and you're like, oh my god, right? So this is good. And finally, really actually the most important reason was that we never had big investors at Wizard of the Coast. Wizard of the Coast, we had a few
Mhm.
small investors, and they were very important to us because the money was tight. But we never had like professional money, no venture capitalists, no private equity funds, nothing like
Gotcha.
that. And most of the equity in Wizard of the Coast, most of the stock was owned by the employees.
Gotcha.
And as Wizards got really successful and was going up and to the right, people are getting out their calculators and looking up online how to calculate the value of a company and figuring out their percentage of it and go, oh my God, I'm a millionaire.
Mhm.
But then they go down and try and buy a house for that. No, because it's all what's called privately held stock. It's stock that
Mhm.
you can't go trade on the market, and it has no liquidity, meaning you can't turn it into cash. And so people were like, hey, how can we solve this problem? Well, then you either got to go public or you got to sell the company or do some sort of LBO about it or whatever. And so there was also, I owed it to those shareholders to say, yes, you're right, you're a millionaire, and not just on paper. We should find a way that you could be a millionaire and go buy a house, and
Mhm.
send your kids to school and do all the things that
No,
that people can. And so that was the real reason we did it. It changed the lives of a whole bunch of people.
now, when did Hasbro get involved in it?
Well, when I sold the company, that was to Hasbro.
Okay, so basically, Hasbro bought it from you.
That's right,
Because
from me and the other
okay,
shareholders. Yeah,
good.
yeah,
I'm
and
glad you clarified that because there's a comment in here saying that you had to answer to Hasbro. No, you didn't. You sold
well,
the company
yeah,
to
I sold.
Hasbro.
I had to answer to Hasbro after I sold it because I part of the
Yeah.
deal was when you buy a company, you always want the
Oh
CEO
yeah.
to stay around for a little while.
Yeah.
so
For
so yeah,
stability.
yeah.
Gotcha.
It's called a transition. They
Yeah.
always say an entrepreneur sells his company, and 2 years later he realizes he sold his company.
Yeah.
That-
Now,
yeah.
now, Chris Lundgren says in many ways you also helped the creation of the OSR and new SR by OGL. Well, using the OGL for years. Did you enjoy watching that happen? I think what
Oh,
he's
I haven't
saying.
kept up. What's the OCR? OSR.
The new SR is basically the new school revival. It's basically based on the OSR is what it is.
Oh,
So
I have no idea. I haven't kept
yeah,
up. Yeah,
gotcha. Not a
yeah,
problem. Um,
You can ask me any WOTC question you like to, but if it's something since 2001, I probably don't know the answer.
Gotcha.
And I love WOTC. I'm glad WOTC is doing well. But I don't keep up with what they're doing. It's
Gotcha.
you know.
Now GenCon.
Yes.
You moved from when did you acquire GenCon?
Okay, so I sold WOTC to Hasbro in 1999. I stayed on for 2 years, year and a half to 2001. And then in 2002, so I was out of job for a year. And in 2002, I bought GenCon from Hasbro because I had owned GenCon as part of Wizards, right?
Wow.
So
Okay. Yeah.
GenCon was originally part of TSR, which was a company that owned Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, Gary Gygax didn't just invent D&D. He started GenCon with so when we acquired TSR, it was like, yay, we get D&D, and I'm always saying, yeah, GenCon. I mean, that to me, that was the icing on the cake.
Mhm.
So later, after, of course, when I sold Wizards, GenCon was part of that. Hasbro ended up with all of that, and then a year after I left, I bought GenCon from Hasbro.
Gotcha. Now, GenCon has really kind of blown up. I mean, it's become last year, 2025, I believe you guys had 20 or 72,000 unique tickets sold.
Yeah, I lost count, to be honest.
Yeah, 72,000 in 2025. Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of
Crazy.
challenges have you guys run into it with the rocket growth of it?
Well, I think the biggest challenge. I mean, there's lots of it's GenCon is very operations oriented. It's all space planning, it's registration systems, it's hotel contracts, it's citywide contracts. It's it's throwing a party. I mean, if you've ever hosted a party, you know what it's like to host a party. It's not the host doesn't have much fun at the party. The host is making sure everybody else is having fun, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot of the problems that you could just sort of guess, like registration systems and stuff like that, line controls and stuff. But really, the biggest problem has been lack of space. The venue is only so big, and we could be bigger, but we have to be very cautious about growth. We actually slowed down growth and restrict sales, and especially to exhibitors for booths and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's because we're out of space, but we also nicely profitable as a business. It's a great business, so it's not like not all businesses need to grow like this all the time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a business that there's nothing wrong with an annuity, a business that is that just grows a little bit but makes a good profit.
Yeah,
that's where we're at now. And I'm not involved with GenCon operations anymore. I used to run it, and then I had a couple other people in succession who've run it, and I just kind of sit back and look cute.
So basically, you're on the board and you're the smiling face when it comes to certain events and having to do certain things.
Yeah, I don't even do public appearances for GenCon anymore.
Kind of like Wendy's Hamburgers.
Sorry?
Kind of like Wendy's Hamburgers. The guy who founded them was the spokesperson.
Well, the guy that founded GenCon was Gary Gygax. So, Yeah. So, no, I don't. I was the public face of GenCon for a long time too, but I've stepped back from doing that now. I'm really enjoying playing war games.
Yeah. Now, well, we all know about COVID came around, and then GenCon shut down. Now, post COVID, was there anything? Was there any pivoting done by GenCon regarding running it? As far as operational, did you guys pivot to anything different, or
I think that a lot of conventions, GenCon included, tried more experimentation in virtual events, virtual convention type stuff. But as soon as that was just for a couple of years. As soon as COVID released to where we could start having people come back to the convention and start having a convention again, we kind of kissed that goodbye. And so, in terms of when I hear, as a business guy, when I hear the word pivot, I think that your business is going this way, and suddenly you make a turn, and now you're going a different direction. Now, it was more like a detour You know, we're kind of back doing the same thing we were doing before
Gotcha.
COVID, which is the what we've always done. It's a big
Yeah.
convention for gamers, you know, and
N-
I like to think that it's a convention, a business where don't screw it up. Like it's like you can sometimes a business. I think Gen Con's a type of business where if you get too creative, maybe you risk like just do what you've always done and just do it
Yep.
really well. Just make it really smooth, make it really easy for people to
Yep.
attend, make it easy for people to get in the door, make it easy for them to sign up for
Yep.
events, make it easier for them to run events, make and that and and even some of that stuff's difficult. We can't promise everybody a hotel room within a
Mhm.
10 block radius. You know that.
Mm.
So again, the issue of size.
Gotcha. Now, Dungeon Cocktail Experience has a question. They say, how much resistance, if any, did you get when you decided to move from Milwaukee to Indy?
Oh my gosh, not that's a funny question. Not only did I get resistance, I was the resistor. Okay, so
Oh, okay.
we okay, while I was at Wizards of the Coast, after we acquired Gen Con and TSR, the event team that was running ended up inheriting Gen Con and was also running other types of events like the Magic Pro Tour and stuff like that. They figured out real quick that Milwaukee was a horrible place to be running Gen Con. And the venue was too small, and quite frankly, they didn't like us in Milwaukee. They didn't want us there. I mean, they're not
Really?
going to say that. Oh no, they did not like us. We dressed
Wow.
weird. We just were not there. And so the person running the team came to me and with a presentation said pitched, hey, we're gonna move Gen Con. They'd already gone out and done the work. We'd like to move Gen Con to Indianapolis. And I threw them out of my office. I said, hell no, we are not moving to Indianapolis. We're staying in Milwaukee. We're at the Mecca Center, It's, I mean, the meeting was it was a 5-minute meeting. I told him to leave my office. And then the guy that was my COO came to me, later that day. He says, "Oh, I heard you didn't like the Gen Con presentation, to move to Indianapolis." And I said, "Hell no, we're not moving to Indianapolis, blah, 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 blah." And Vince was like, Peter, did you listen to their reasons for moving it? I said, "No, it's a bad idea." He says, "I really think you should listen to what they have to say." And so I had them come back in. I sat down, and this time, because Vince, I really respect. He was a great guy. He was my mentor in business. He unfortunately just passed away last year. I miss him
Oh, I'm sorry
terribly.
to hear that.
Yeah, but he so I had them back in and I sat and listened to them and they'd done their homework. They had a great presentation, and I didn't realize how bad it was, because you could, like any convention could be falling apart at the seams and be horrible, but your experience with a convention might be just fine, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You showed up, you went and played your game, you won, it was great, so I think that there was I didn't realize all the problems that were there. And
Gotcha.
once I learned all those problems, then I was like, okay, yeah, we're moving to Indianapolis. Yeah, that's
Gotcha.
fine. Yeah.
Now, you've headed some of, let's face it, you have headed very large companies. What kind of advice would you give smaller companies to be successful and to be profitable, if not, but just basic advice that you give smaller companies?
Oh yeah. I have a whole list. It's like when I ask that question, like, okay, roll the dice. Which answer am I going to give? Because there's so many things you could say. There's the money stuff. You have to, watch out for overhead, man. Watch out for stuff that is like any time you have a check that you have to pay every single month, then that be wary of those types of things. Try to stay limber. Try to. I think also don't ever stop thinking. Like it's really easy to, in a business environment, especially in a corporate business environment, people like to throw out jargons, like, oh, the customer's always right, or, whatever sort of BS that somebody came up with. And none of these things are always true. Every situation that you get into, every problem that comes up, yes, understand what the traditional wisdom is, sure, for sure, but understand why that wisdom applies, and maybe it doesn't apply in that situation, and be careful how many people you hire good people, and you got to be honest with yourself about what your business is. What is your business plan? What is the product or service that you are going to provide to people that they can't get anywhere else? And then how do you protect it? What's your competitive advantage? What is the thing about your company that makes it unfair for everybody else to compete against you?
Yep. Now, in the very beginning, you talked about being a big gamer, war gamer. Would you classify yourself as a board gamer, an RPGer? What is your flavor that you like the most when it comes to gaming?
Well, right now, board war games and historical war games, like World War II, Waterloo, stuff like that.
Yep.
And played on a board, Battle of Jutland, maybe that'll come up later. But I also like, certainly I like role-playing games. Like I said, I went on a long 40-year side quest of playing D&D. And towards the end of that side quest, I was playing a lot of other systems as well. I went deep down into the whole indie RPG scene at the turn of the century, and I played a lot of Brain Wheel and stuff like that. And then I like board games, like Euro games. I love Uwe Rosenberg games. I think Agricola, Feast for Odin, Caverna, games like that.
What is your favorite tabletop game?
Well, that varies. I mean, that changes. Right now, my favorite tabletop game. I just jumped on the. I'm really diving into a wargaming system called OCS, Operational Combat System, which is a guy named Dean Essing went and designed a system for operational level World War II combat, and then a whole series of games come out using that system. So you learn this system. It's a really fantastic system, and you can apply it to different campaigns that happened in World War II. So that's currently my favorite, but I also love, right now it's mostly war games. So Squad Leader, I play a lot of Squad Leader. I'm also playing A World at War, which is sort of the spiritual successor to Third Reich.
Yep.
Which I played a lot when I was young. I love Commands and Colors, Napoleonics. That's fantastic. So those are kind of what I'm playing now.
Gotcha. Now on to the meat and potatoes of this. What are you doing now, Peter?
Well, that's what brought us together. Okay, so
Yes.
I have a project that I am working on, which is right now. The placeholder title is Immersive Jutland, but that's not going to be what's going to be called because I don't like that. I don't like that quite right. It's not quite yet. We haven't come up with the right title yet. But anyway, a little background. There is a war game, historical war game called Jutland. Which is based on the Battle of Jutland, which was fought in World War I. People always want to say World War II, World War I. And it was the largest battleship fight in the history of the world. Okay. So, I mean, battleships haven't been a thing for very long. They came around.
It was even bigger than the battle that involved Bismarck.
That's right. Yeah, the Battle of Bismarck isn't very big.
Yeah, not at all. It's only like five ships, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, there were other fights in World War II that were pretty big, like Leyte and Battle of Coral Sea and stuff. But none of them. But by World War II, the nature battleships no longer were the important ship. It was aircraft carriers.
Yep.
And air power became the deciding factor. So World War I. It was battleships were still. So there was a narrow window that basically starts before World War I and up to before World War II, where battleships were the thing. And who doesn't love battleships? I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Battleships are cool.
Exactly.
Right? And so the only fight, the only battle that happened with just tons and tons of battleships was the Battle of Jutland. And so. Avalon Hill did a game called Jutland back in 1967, and I loved this game as a kid. When I was first playing war games with my dad, back in the 70s, when he was stationed at Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Fort Polk! Oh, I can tell you stories of my day back there. Wow.
Yeah. So, and I love this game, and the game involved two levels: a search procedure and a battle procedure. The search procedure is it's the British versus the Germans, and there's multiple British fleets and multiple German fleets. Three British fleets and two German fleets, and the two German fleets starts off together, but the three British fleets start off in different locations. So the best way to play this game is as a multiplayer game where each player commands one of these fleets. And then once they set sail, they can't communicate with each other because wireless telephony, well, if you used it, people knew where you were. So standard naval practices in those days were that, until you found the other fleet, don't tell everybody where you're at by using wireless. So the players now have to go out and basically looking for each other, seeking battle, but seeking for it under favorable conditions, and they can't talk with each other while they're doing this. So and then when two fleets find each other, you break out into battle mode, and you have miniatures, and you move the miniatures around on a table and play a naval miniatures game with those miniatures. So I ran this game, and it wasn't originally designed to be run with an umpire, so I ran it as myself as the umpire, and I immediately was frustrated that it was. It's like, I mean, everybody had a good time, but I was like, this could be so much better. For one thing, I need to electronically track. I need an app that tracks where everybody's at. And wouldn't it be cool if we had video that, like, everybody's doing the search procedure? What if everybody had an app where they could track their ships, where they're moving on their fleet on this app, but then they could all sit together so they're not socially isolated, because they just, you just don't show your app to anybody else. Everybody's on the honor system, And so, and anyway, and then I started thinking about why. By the way, I have a film studio in West Seattle. I'm an amateur filmmaker. That's kind of one of the things I've done in my retirement years, is play around with streaming and stuff like that. And so I could make cool videos. Like, what if at the beginning, if the British admirals are all briefed by Churchill, who was head of the Admiralty then, or the German admirals are briefed by Kaiser. And so that led to the idea of, like, hey, how about having actors film them and doing these intros. And then I thought, well, we could do other scenes of things that happened during the course of the search procedure, and ambient tracks that run during the course of the battle procedure, and and then for some of the scenes that I wanted to do would happen at sea. So, well, if we have some of these scenes happening at sea to film them, wouldn't it be cool to build some models of the historical ships? And, like, I know a guy here in Seattle that can do scanning and turn that into a 3D image and do all the VFX wizardry, have explosions and all this shit like that happening. So so that's what I'm doing, and that's what you're doing. So I was like, well, what do I do? How do I make these studio models? Well, I knew Jim Lampler. I knew him well. He's big in the miniature scene, and I've never been a big miniatures guy. I like miniatures. I got a Napoleonics army, but that's about it. And so I reached out to Jim and said, hey, do you know anybody, or do you, meaning Jim, do you make models of things for filming, And and I didn't use the term studio model. He's like, well, you really want a studio models to make them bigger so you get more resolution, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like nodding my head. Okay, sounds good. Yep. And he says, oh, I know the guy. Yeah. And so, who was that guy? Don Samora. Yeah, you. Yeah. So that's how we got hooked up. So Jim hooked us up.
Yeah, thank you, Jim, by the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Absolutely.
Now,
and so I commissioned with you 5 World War I themed 3 ships. Yep. A Zeppelin and a seaplane.
Yes. The Koenig. Yep. The Koenig's probably the submarine's the biggest one, but the Koenig is definitely the coolest one of the bunch in my book, and that's one of the battleships. So I'm responsible for doing one of the battleships. I believe another creator did another battleship for you.
Yeah. So I already had one in the bag because a friend of mine named Douglas Bailey. He is not a model, doesn't build studio models professionally like you did, but he is, he's a really good modeler. He does really good building of models and painting, and he's like one of these people that just has a ton of hobbies and excels at all of them. And he knew that I was into Jutland, and that was a big deal for him and inspired him. And he had just on a lark gone out and bought the Iron Duke, which is the British flagship. That was Jellicoe's flagship in the Royal Navy, and built the thing. And so when I said I'm doing a film shoot, I'm sorry, I need to borrow your ship. He's like, okay. So yeah, but he was intimidated. Like, no, I'm not doing it anymore. You need to find somebody else. It's like he's a very humble guy. So the idea of the fact that he made one, he's like, okay, yeah, you can use it if you think it's good enough. Yeah. And so yeah.
Nice. Now, Tom wrote to that tabletop terrapin says, what films have you done? I mean, have you done any films or anything that you've actually put out there?
Oh, nothing like that. We never found an audience for it. We were just doing stuff on YouTube and Twitch stuff. Yeah, we mostly just stuff to support my Chaldea, my fantasy RPG campaign. And there's a World of Chaldea website. You could go there and you can find the stuff we did, but we never got into distribution in any sort of meaningful way, and never really cracked the code on how to get good viewership with social media or anything.
No, regarding the new game that we're doing together not doing together, I'm doing the models for them, but you're producing it, of course. You're mixing live action actors with models. What kind of stopped you from just doing it all digital?
Well, it all becomes digital. But you mean
becomes, but the way the new thing seems to be all digital. Practical effects are kind of going to the leeway, sadly.
Right.
And people are going more pure digital, like with the actors. Instead of actors, make them like more AI digital, that type of stuff.
Right.
What made you kind of pivot from that to?
That's a really good question, Don. For me, is I just don't want to. It doesn't look fun. I mean, I don't want to use AI. I mean, you can't not use AI these days. If my email, I go into Outlook and use email. There's AI shit happening. It's like I don't want any of this stuff. So I understand it's a big deal. A lot of people love it, and I just don't want to use AI. I just don't want to. So I don't know. It does put the future. I mean, maybe this idea is just a whatever I do. I mean, I guess for a long time as a filmmaker, everything I've done has just been sort of an eclectic hobby.
Gotcha.
I'm just a guy making stuff, and it's fun. And this is where your GenCon money goes. Is the doing shit like this. So I don't know. It does make me think that if I don't want to use AI, but I don't want to compete against AI either. Like I could do really cool stuff, but somebody else could do it for way cheaper by using AI instead. So that does give me pause, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I just don't want to do it.
So when are you planning on releasing the game? I mean, is there kind of like a timeline or?
Yeah. Okay. So it won't probably be at least a year off. So it won't be released like, here's something you buy through distribution. I'm going to do it as an event. And so at first it'll be like, okay, I'm running, I don't know, whatever I call it, something Jutland, but I need a catchy word in front of it, something unique like Google, something I can trademark. And so say Immersive Jutland for now, just for discussion. So if I run this event called Immersive Jutland, if I run it in my studio here in West Seattle, and then people would just come down and run through it, kind of like you would an escape room.
Yeah.
Or going to a D&D in a castle, or it's kind of like an experience. And if it works and people like it, then I could take it on the road. I could come to I could come to Detroit. I'm here in LA or wherever, or better yet, get somebody else to do it for me. Or license it out to somebody who likes doing that sort of thing. And if it works, I could do other events. I mean, if I do this thing and people go, oh my God, that's really cool, and people are talking about it, and I get swarmed with people wanting to do it and I can't keep up, that's when you know you got something, right? So I think that I will start playtesting this next year and probably wouldn't, so hey, my email address peter@gencon.com. If you live in Seattle, you want to play test, just drop me a line.
Yes, absolutely.
Or if you just want to fly to Seattle and hang out, and
Why
play test
not?
it. Yeah, drop me a line. But
Well-
I won't have a playtest version until probably middle of next year.
Well, I'll tell you, from what you've told me about it and my small part that I've had so far, and I'll have developing this with with the models, I think it's gonna be a really cool game. I think just the idea of bringing in, take that mix of tabletop wargaming with a app. It's just something really unique, and you're right. That app will bring a unique visceral experience to the game. I think when someone's playing it, and I think I think it's just unique, so unique. So
Thank you. Thank you.
absolutely. Let's see, we got people.
I see somebody asked how to get a hold of me on YouTube. I'm not on YouTube anymore, but you can you can drop me an email. The only social media I do right now is Facebook, and I'm Peter Adkison on Facebook. Now you know what I look like, so when it shows you 20 different Peter Adkisons, you can pick me out.
Yep.
It's actually I think my Facebook profile picture is I'm with a with my wife in front of our house door. So
Gotcha.
but if you just try and friend me there and I don't know you, I won't notice. So just if you send me a message, but hey, I saw you on Don Samora's show, then and I'm interested in Jutland play testing, then then let me know that by email and we can friend up on Facebook.
So before we go, anything you got anything in development besides this, or is this your sole baby right now?
This is it because I'm spending most of my time, Don. How many times I have to tell you? I'm spending most of my time playing war games.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So this is all the work I can handle. This
Yes.
one project, and
Yes.
and it's going slowly because I'm spending all my time playing war games.
Yeah.
Also, if you live in the Seattle area and like to play war games, let me know too.
Yeah,
'cause,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well-
No, I don't have if I feel like this is a really cool idea and I end up deciding I want to spend more time on it and then I'll do the same thing for Napoleonics or for World War II, or I'll do things like this, building some sort of immersive experience using video, because the video is what I like to do. By the way, I mean that'll be and the reason I don't like the word immersive is I feel like if I'm doing an immersive game about being on a battleship, that people are going to expect me to come in and splash salt water into their face, or something. I don't know. No, I'm just doing like a video enhanced version of the game. There's nobody's going to die.
No,
I don't think. Hopefully not.
Yeah. Tom from Tabletop Taproom asks, do you play Wings of War or Wings of Glory?
I have played Wings of Glory. It's great. Aerial war gaming is not my favorite genre, but I have played Wings of Glory. I think it's really fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah, it's good. And somebody said I should go to a battleship museum.
You should.
Yeah,
I
think that's a great idea. I think there is actually I have to go look it up on the internet to find out where it is, but there is actually a World War I era. I think a destroyer that's in Texas somewhere. I want to go see it. And there's also one in one of the UK ports. I can't remember, like Plymouth or someplace like that. So I think doing something like this in conjunction with a museum, especially a military museum, or doubly especially a military nautical museum, would make a lot of sense. I would think, and I think all I would need for this game is one room, be able to run a wall of videos around it and stuff. So anyway, but we'll see. The game is still in development. I'm not quite sure exactly how it's going to turn out because it also has some problems that I need to solve. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I think we've kind of ran through the Peter Atkinson life here.
Well, I'm also married and I have 2 dogs. There you go.
Oh, I mean, what do you do besides wargaming and developing another tabletop game? I mean, what are the things you like to do on the side?
My wife and I love to play games, and so we play a lot of games. We also love to travel, and we love to drink wine, and so
Wine.
we have kind of merged the love of wine and the love of travel together, so that we kind of go do wine tourism. I mean,
No,
it's
it's a
very nice.
thing. Yeah.
I mean, it's a thing to do. So like recently in January we went to Chile or Argentina, excuse me, and we went to the Mendoza region where they make Malbecs, and we spent 2 weeks in Chile.
So
And-
where's your favorite place to go to travel?
well, we almost always go somewhere new. So we're always like
Gotcha.
if I had, like, if you said like places I've gone and where would I like most to go back to, I really liked Istanbul.
Mhm.
I also really liked Rome, and I really liked Paris. Those are probably at the top of my list. Those three.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
and we never owned dogs before until
What kind of dogs you own?
in January we bought two. We did buy them. It seems weird. We acquired them from a breeder. Two English Springer Spaniels.
Ooh, they're high energy to say the least.
Yep.
Yeah. I have a friend, Corey Thompson, actually, who's a very famous in board gaming circles. He used to be a veterinarian, and he said, "Well, you could have found a more challenging breed.
Yeah.
But you would have had to
exactly.
do a lot of research to find that breed. It was
Mhm.
more challenging than English
Yeah.
Springer.
Yeah,
But
they are handful.
they are enthusiastic, high energy. But I'll tell you this, Don. I had epiphany just like last week. We've had it for like 5 months now. That they do everything from a place of love. They really
Yeah.
do. There is nothing. At least the two that we have. There's nothing malicious at all in them at all. They just they love you, and they love doing things, and they love eating things, and they love ripping things up and go
Yep.
go go. But it's all just
Like mine.
they're just living their best puppy lives. So.
Yep. So you're also married to your wife. How long you been married?
Yes, I'm married to my wife. Very good. Yeah.
Yes.
We got married in 2014. So
Nice.
we're coming up on 12 years.
12 years. Nice.
Yeah. So
Now,
yeah, she's great. Her name is Dee. She retired at the same time. We both retired last November. She worked most of her career in Asia in supply chain management, corporate compliance.
nice.
She likes to say that she can walk into a factory and just know exactly what's wrong just by listening.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the experience talking to her right there.
Yeah, she's a great gal. Great gal.
Great. Now, before we go, just a couple kind of minor questions.
Sure.
What's your favorite movie?
My favorite what?
Favorite movie?
Oh, movie. My favorite movie. Wow. That's good. I'm a child of my time. It's gonna be like Conan the Barbarian,
Awesome.
or Alien, or Predator. All the.
I got to ask this now.
Guys.
Is it Alien or Aliens your favorite?
Boy, they're different. They fit so well together, but they're also so different. I probably Aliens, probably the second
Yeah.
one, because I just like the banter with the Space Marines
Yeah.
is so good. I use that as an example of the type of comedy I like. Right? Like I never like sitcoms. I mean, stand up is okay when it scrolls by on Facebook, but I never go to or just like so many comedy type movies I just think are dumb. But the comedy in Aliens is just amazing.
Amazing.
Just
Yeah.
so
They use that
funny.
military, dry, kind of sarcastic, always on each other's ass type
Yeah.
humor. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I think like I said, I'm really excited for the project. This new game that's coming out. We will definitely be pushing it and throwing it all over. I will, if you want, I can put information out online about people wanting to maybe play test the game, sign up for it if you want.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. If you're in Seattle, like I mean, this is a game you play in person. It's a thing. It's not something we can ship to people because it's it's videos and stuff. So
Gotcha.
I agree. Vasquez, I'm seeing the comments.
Yeah, Vasquez.
Vasquez.
It's
Ever
exactly.
been mistaken for a man?
Yeah.
No, have you?
Have you? Yeah, exactly. So, well, you know what, Peter, thank you, by the way. Thank you for
Absolutely.
coming on
Thank
here. I
you.
mean, this has been
Thank
great.
you for having me, and thank you for building these kick-ass models for my
appreciate it.
game.
Yeah, my pleasure. Like I said, love to get involved in these projects, love to be part of them, that little part that us model makers do when we do them.
Yeah,
So I'll be proud to whenever I see those ships and such, and that airplane and that zeppelin in the sky, I'll say, I did that.
that's right.
So Peter, again, thank you very much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I know you're a very busy man, and coming on here for an hour, I know, taking your time out. Thank you, and thank you to your wife for also kind of putting the rubber stamp on it. I know how it is. We're married. I'm married too, so.
She lets me get away with all sorts of shit.
That's right. Yeah, my wife also. God bless them.
Yeah.
But Peter, thank you very much for coming on. Again, the Jutland game is going to be coming out next year. We'll be putting out word about in-person gaming and all that. GenCon's coming.
I think we'll be ready for play testing next year.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be out until the year after that. But it's also like, it just kind of it probably is just going to kind of evolve until it's a thing.
Yeah, we're doing an online game called Zonk. It's an online dungeon experience. We're working with David Floor with Darklight Interactive, and that thing has been just to get it coding. It is just pure code online game. I take my hat off to you, because it has been an absolute 3 years been in development now on it.
Hey, somebody says buy Glenn's book. What's your book, Glenn?
I thought I'd get away with not having to do that this time.
Don't every show buy Glenn's book. He
my book.
When the Fat Orc Sings.
It's a fantasy book.
Yep, it's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
And this guy publishes it.
Yep, I published it for him. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, it's a very funny book.
Yep, very, very funny book.
Right. Is it like Aliens level funny?
Yeah,
sarcastic.
It's like if Raymond Chandler wrote a D&D.
Oh,
yeah. It's got a lot of that dry, sarcastic humor in it.
Yeah.
Is it available? Is it digital or?
Unfortunately, not yet.
Not yet. We're waiting on approval from Amazon for ebook, but it is available physical. But I'll tell you what I can do is I will email you over a PDF copy of the book.
Perfect.
Okay. I'll get you one.
Thanks.
No worries.
Thank you for coming, sir.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Don.
Yep. And thank you again for coming on. And this is Don at the Vlog Many Things signing off, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back next week.
All right, folks.
How do we get out of here?
Yep. And we have an Alan Hammock on here on, I believe, the
Tell mine for me. Yeah.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
He's on here on the 25th. He's coming on.
And I think we're gonna have another show tomorrow night. So
yes.
All right.
So